In this video, we're going to talk about plagiarism, and I'm going to show a few examples because it can be a bit tricky. So, first of all, plagiarism is the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and not correctly attributing them to that person. So, in this class, we're working on citation. It's part of the course, and so, of course, you're going to make some errors. You're going to forget an internal citation or do it incorrectly or make a bad paraphrase. And I can tell when you're trying your best, but having some trouble with a new concept. And so I don't want you to worry that you're going to get in huge trouble if you make an honest mistake. But we're both going to talk about those kinds of plagiarism. And we're also going to talk a little bit about less academically honest forms of plagiarism, which come, of course, with their own consequences. So a lot of students don't realize this, but self-plagiarism is a thing. You actually aren't allowed to reuse your own work. So if you wrote a paper for one class, you can't just turn it in to another class if you don't talk to the professor. So you wouldn't want to turn in a whole paper or even passages of your own paper that you've already turned in for another class. So here's one example. It says, Julia has been working on her paper for her comp class and came up with a draft for workshop. She got some good ideas from workshop, but before submitting her final paper, she gives the paper to her sister so she can get some help with making it sound better. Her sister helps her with grammar and punctuation and also rewrites a few sentences to make the transition smoother and the vocabulary more elevated. Julia then turns it in for a grade. So I'm going to go through 3 examples here. If I'm going a little too fast, you can pause the video, take a little time to read the scenario. But here, generally speaking, if you're getting like grammar and punctuation help, I'm usually fine with that. I don't want you to be rewriting sentences for people. And so Julia's sister here rewrote some of the sentences to smooth things out. I don't want that. And so I don't want that in the workshops either. So overall, people have given great workshop comments on A1. But I did see some people saying, this sounds a little awkward. Try it like this. And then they wrote the full sentence out in the comments. I don't want that. I want to make sure people are writing their own sentences. So grammar and punctuation is in a bit of a different category. That's okay. What I don't want is for you to be writing sentences for other people. Second scenario here, we have Jessica is researching Gardasil and comes across the following information on the medication's website. Gardasil is the only cervical cancer vaccine that helps protect against 4 types of human papillomavirus, HPV, 2 types that cause 70% of cervical cancer cases, and 2 more types that cause 90% of genital warts cases. Gardasil is for girls and women ages 9 to 26. She decides to paraphrase the info as such in her paper's introduction. Gardasil is the sole cervical cancer vaccine that protects against 4 types of HPV and herpes. Gardasil is for females between the ages of 9 and 26. And then she put a citation. So it's great that there's a citation here. This actually should have the author's name, as we've talked about, the author's name and page number in parentheses, if those are available. The problem here is that it's a paraphrase and the wording is too close to the wording of the quote. So we have, is the only cervical cancer vaccine versus in the paraphrase, is the sole cervical cancer vaccine. It says it's for females between the ages of 9 and 26. In the quote, it says is for girls and women ages 9 to 26. So when you paraphrase, sometimes it's best to put the quote itself away for a little bit and then try to remember it. And that'll help you come up with your own language. You want it to sound like you, and you don't want to take too many words, especially too many words in a row from the quote itself. Otherwise, you risk plagiarism via a bad paraphrase. One note I want to make is that some students have trouble understanding that a paraphrase also requires a citation. So remember, quoting, you have to use the words exactly, you put them in quotes. Most folks understand that that requires a citation. If you take information from a source and put it in your own words, that's great. You want to change the wording, but you do need a citation because you're still taking it from the source. Okay, in scenario 3 here, we have Jeff has collected several pieces of evidence about the Vietnam War for his paper. He relies on several newspaper articles written during and after the conflict. As he writes a description of the Tet Offensive, he properly cites direct quotations and eyewitness accounts. However, he does not cite basic background information such as names, dates, and geographical place names. So it's great that he cited his direct quotations and the eyewitness accounts, but unless you have really, really general information, you still need to use a citation. So we know, you know, generally when the Vietnam War happened, people know what Vietnam is, that it's a country. You know, that stuff doesn't really need to be cited. But if you've got names, dates, and places anywhere more specific than Vietnam, you're really going to have to cite that too. So make sure if you're, you know, in doubt, use a citation. And when you're taking notes on a source, um, make sure to keep track of who the author is and the page number so that when you go back and you want to use the information, you have it there in your notes with the information you need to cite it. So these were some examples of honest plagiarism, people not intending to plagiarize, but not understanding the rules and doing it. I want you to start working on this. If you get it wrong, you know, as we go through the semester, that's worth more and more points, but you're not going to get in big trouble. I have also, you know, had students turn in papers that they found online or papers that someone else wrote for them. And we've already talked about that this semester, but that's a really bad decision. It's not respectful to your classmates who are doing their own work. Um, and it's fairly likely to get you caught. And then there's also some pretty significant consequences that can come from that. So certainly don't make that decision. And it's always better to reach out to me. Tell me that you're, you know, panicking, maybe you don't have an assignment done on time, and we can work through that together. That's better than making kind of a panic move and getting in big trouble. With these ones, where it's more honest mistakes, this is just something to work on over the course of the semester. So think about these examples, think about things that come up, ask me questions when you have them, and we can learn how to better cite in our papers.